I see painting companies especially bad at hiring salespeople. It's always that owner operator. It's always that guy who has been in it for 10 years or 20 years. He knows his pricing, but doesn't know how to add the next salesperson without pricing falling apart or the communication with the homeowner falling apart.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. What is up, everybody? Mike Hickman here, founder of PainterGrowth.com, and you are listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. And today, I have a friend on that I've known for a long time, Brandon Healey. He is now the Vice President of Sales and Operations at SumoQuote. And yeah, super stoked that you've gotten this new role. You've been at SumoQuote for 4 years. And yeah, man, congrats. Welcome. Glad to have you on.
Thanks. Great to be on. Great to reconnect with you, Mike.
So before we jump into the business side of it, we were just kind of BSing before. You're big into hunting and fishing. What are you going for this year?
So fly fishing season has sadly ended. End of October is always when fly fishing wraps up, but hunting this year is going to be a few white-tailed deer. I've got tags for the buck, a couple does, and then got drawn for a couple elk. So really excited for elk hunting season. For those of you who follow hunting, Alberta is incredible. And
there's a lot of Americans who listen to this podcast, so they're probably just jealous. You know, the ones who like to hunt. Alberta and Saskatchewan are some of the best places to hunt and fish.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's incredible. I've got a family back in Saskatchewan still, and one of them, sent me a photo. He's like, yeah, my son at 12 years old just got his first bull elk this year. And needless to say, it took me 5 years to get my first bull elk last year. It was an incredible amount of work. But anyhow, it just goes to show that Saskatchewan people are just a little better at everything than us up here. So that's the way of things.
Yeah, that's one way of describing it, I guess.
Colder, but better.
Yeah. So we've kind of got our start in a similar vein with student painting way back in the day. And now you are an exec at SumoQuote. So, I mean, just give me a quick overview. How did the foundation of a student painting franchise and business and being involved in that world kind of start your career off and lead you to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was in College Pro, either on the coaching staff or, running franchises for what would have been about 9 years, and loved it. Had a great experience. What I would say is very unique about the student painting franchise model that College Pro had was that it's very systematic in its thinking. When it comes to how do you improve sales, there's systems for it. How do you sell in the first place? Here's the script. How do you market? How do you differentiate yourself? It's really teaches you a lot of the foundations of just what is the core knowledge, the core skills, and the core processes to be able to repeat effective sales or repeat effective, marketing or things like that. And then I would say, in addition, there's a really thorough revenue tracking, results tracking, success ratio tracking world that you just get embedded in that franchise model. That is just that's the basis of good selling. And so when I was fortunate enough to work on the coaching staff and do kind of some sales coaching with people, I just really got ingrained in that way of how do you level up your close rate, and how do you get your close rate from 40 to 60 and 60 to 80, and high seasons, you can start creeping above that. And so I had a unique opportunity to be able to join a tech company that was trying to replicate coaching entrepreneurs in the technology space. So they were trying to do essentially an e-learning product for entrepreneurs that was rooted in coaching process. So I was able to join them as their head of sales, start trying to grow that. Really got a great leg into the technology space. that product didn't really work out, pivoted into another, built up a few sales processes and different target markets for that. That didn't work out. We pivoted again, shifted into a new product, built that up, ran out of funding. And then the next morning, I was grabbing a coffee with the CEO of SumoQuote, and he's like, "You got to come grow this thing." He's like, "You've got the right experience. You've done a pile of in-home sales. Now you've, kind of shifted into the technology world. Come grow sales with us." And yeah, I mean, now we're the largest quoting solution by number of companies using us in the roofing space 4 years later. Thousands of people are producing, it's this year we're already at, we're approaching $2 billion in quotes signed through SumoQuote just in 2023.
That's pretty cool.
And so it's been a phenomenal story of kind of growing that team. So yeah, I grew the sales side. Now I took over the marketing this year, and then I also oversee the revenue operations side of things. So anyhow, that's about as quick of a catch up as I can give you.
The way that you kind of phrase your history actually makes a lot of sense for you to be now in the position that you're in, right? Starting in painting, doing quotes, understanding systems, seeing what a good, quoting system is, what a bad quoting system is, all the various metrics you need to improve sales rate, improve, cancellation rate, no-show rate, and all the metrics in between. Years in tech, and then in tech startups specifically, and then jumping onto a rocket ship.
Yeah. So no, it's been. I think that it feels very logical and intuitive in hindsight. And at the time, one of the things that I was looking for when I had been kind of in the painting side of things was I was looking for a way to, for one, keep my hours to 9 to 5, which is really, really hard in the contracting space. And two, I wanted to be able to get into a business where it was possible to own pieces of companies as I went, so that the same way that a contractor can have ownership of their own business and grow it and enjoy that potential, money-making machine that they can leave behind them, I saw technology as a great enabler for me to be able to own pieces of businesses as I went. So that kind of drew me into the tech space. And I mean, I will say sometimes I really miss the contracting space because tech is incredibly hard. It's incredibly exhausting. It's very challenging. It's not a joke. Like, I think that I had a bit of a overinflated ego and overinflated sense of self when I was getting out of the college pro world, because I was like, oh yeah, I can build businesses. I was making 6 figures. It was great. But man, let me tell you, tech is not easy. Building a trades business is so easy because people know what painting is. Nobody knows what a new product is. That has never been launched.
There's a big
before.
Education piece as in addition to the product piece, and you got to be, confident that you're even solving the right problem that people are willing to pay for.
Yeah, and so I kind of miss the painting space because of the practicality, and find myself, the majority of my friends are still College Pro alumni because they're just so grounded, so thoughtful. They're running contracting companies that are killing it now. So I continue to try to stay as connected to the contracting space as I can, because I think it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Lifelong connections there is a group of great people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So back in the day, we would do paper quotes, right? A lot of people still do paper quotes, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Writing down all the things you're doing, what rooms you're painting, what products you're using, then additional features and benefits that you're providing, and then the different pricing options that you're offering the client, and then giving the client a carbon copy. You're taking a picture of the quote and then giving them, half a copy. So what do you feel are like the fundamental improvements now, moving to, not even just SumoQuote, but any digital platform to kind of improve that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I joined SumoQuote, the first aha moment that I had was when I saw how beautiful a custom designed digital proposal that SumoQuote builds, how much better it was than my paper quotes. I actually had flashbacks to painting jobs that I lost. I had flashbacks to I remember this one condo project, or kind of an HOA multifamily project, that it was like a $35,000 quote. And I knew I was tight on my price. I knew that like I had the rapport built with them. And I knew that they wanted to choose me, but I had this insane chicken scratch, super tight handwritten proposal, and I provided it to them. And I just knew that if I wasn't the one to decipher it when he took it to the board, it was gonna be hard. And then, when he actually compared quotes, they ended up going with somebody more expensive, but their proposal was so much clearer, had
Mhm.
photos of tricky spots and stuff. So I lost it to CertaPro, and I was pissed. And I had done everything right. I knew that the job was mine. But when I saw SumoQuote, I was like, I would have won that job. And I knew exactly that. I was like, ugh, my handwritten chicken scratch proposals just weren't good enough for a job with that level of complexity. So when it comes to using a digital proposal, clarity and having something that is very homeowner friendly is a huge advantage. And then I would say the second thing that you get is that you really get a level of repeatability and speed in contract building that otherwise you can't really experience handwritten. Usually it would, and I was very thorough. I would probably be taking 30 to 45 minutes to handwrite each proposal. They were very detailed. As a result, my close rate was killer, because I was so thorough that customers were blown away. But you can get that through templates, through digital tools like SumoQuote that are great. And then I'd say the third thing that I was missing with handwritten was I always had to re-enter it into QuickBooks Online. I always had to re-enter it into my CRM to be able to track my revenue and to track my expenses. And with digital tools, you just don't need to re-enter it. You have no double entry. So it's that standing out and being way more competitive with your quotes. Second, building them quick. And then third is really that, standardization and skipping the double entry process with a digital proposal.
Mhm.
That's just a huge advantage. And I can talk deeper to each if you like.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, like, we both, grew up with the same processes. One of them, I teach our clients, to this day, which is you have to, provide the homeowner the price on the spot, and you go back in, you present it to
Yeah.
them line by line, and then, ask for the job and all of that stuff.
Yep.
For anybody listening, if you're still going home and writing up your numbers, you got to cut that out. Like Brandon said, even if it takes you 45 minutes in your car, you got to get it done, and you got to go back in and present the job. So,
Yep.
how does SumoQuote help enable that process? Like, walk me through the workflow.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we of course allow people to build things on mobile. So we've got about half of our quotes are built, on phones or tablets or things like that. So that's for sure a piece of it. Is guys can get all of their numbers in a house. They can crunch them however they want. We've got some people who have got like a really robust pricing system built into SumoQuote for painting. However, that's not really our sweet spot yet. We'll
Mhm.
soon build like more of a painting specific pricing model into SumoQuote. For right now, it's primarily just a super sexy proposal that
Yep.
digitizes that sale. So frequently, people will put all their numbers together. They'll throw in their top line price. That's like, yeah, this is $15,200 for this job. Here is your optional upgrades to be able to add in. Here is your sales brochures from Sherwin-Williams with color selections and things like that. And then they'll turn it around on their iPad, and they can walk through that entire end-to-end proposal with customers in a very consistent way. But you'll notice that when you're doing it digitally, you don't show the price until you've scrolled to that. So you can walk through that sales education, and you can walk through what the specific photos and areas of the job are that are contributing to your price, the products, the process, perhaps even your schedule. And then eventually when you get to the pricing, you can show, hey, good, better, best if you want. Here's some upgrades, here's some optional things,
Mhm.
and then go through that in a standardized way. So the boots on the ground way, I mean, that's kind of a quick sneak peek. Um, what I would say is unique for painters, especially, is I see painting companies especially bad at hiring salespeople. It's always that owner operator. It's always that guy who has been in it for 10 years or 20 years. He knows his pricing, but doesn't know how to add the next salesperson without pricing falling apart or the communication with the homeowner falling apart. Where using a tool like SumoQuote or a digital proposal tool, it forces you to create a standard sales process of how to walk through when to ask for the job. So it makes it consistent for sales training. So you can just, boom, add one user and they've already got a 90% completed sales pitch that they just need to figure out pricing for.
I'm going to ask you a few feature questions that I think that I want to ask, but I also think clients would want to ask too. All right. So I'm going to bang through a few different feature questions. How about for the guy or girl? We are 89% male audience, 11% female audience, just so you know. For the guys or girls who prefer paper, who prefer presenting a paper quote, is there an option to hook up to like a mobile printer? Because I know we got a lot of guys who do that.
Yeah. So what's crazy is we've got dozens and dozens of companies where they've got a printer sitting in the passenger seat where they'll sit in, they'll put in photos from their iPad or their phone directly into SumoQuote in their truck, and then click print, and they print off essentially a brochure with the customer's home, photos of the customer's home. And when you think about the speed that you could build things in SumoQuote, people are building quotes in 5 minutes, 10 minutes using the app. You're talking like all of a sudden somebody has a printed brochure of the customer's details, sometimes in the time that it takes to walk out into their truck, take 15 minutes, they walk in with a brochure of their house. Beautiful. It's insane. So yeah, we enable that. It's incredible. They can physically
you need
sign
company
it.
Cam, or can you just take pictures with your phone?
You can do both. Yeah, you can do both. We integrate with company cam photos. We integrate with Job Nimbus photos, hover photos, and then also just anything on your device. So super easy.
Talk to me for a minute about customization, right? Customization and customizability is really important to make sure things are ordered in the right way. You know, how different clients maybe want prep first, maybe want rooms first, maybe want the total first. How do you customize your quotes?
Yeah, so we offer some flexibility so that people, when they're using, say, our pricing and quote details areas, that they can either pull from a price list if they want to pull a very, clean written sentence to say, here, this includes all prep, paint, supplies to all selected areas, including a 2-year warranty with in your perfect way. You can quickly grab a line item from your price list to be able to have a templated way of describing things. So you can type a few letters, pull that in, and snap. It'll pull in like a full sentence or a full descriptive line item.
Okay, my next question was going to be blocks. Like if you had a block of like a certain, how I describe, preparation on X90 siding or hardy board, like you can just pull in, this is how I prep hardy board, and it'll be a whole paragraph.
Totally. So your line items in SumoQuote allow full descriptions that can be pulled in very quickly based on micro templates, which can just be the descriptions in your price list. And you can also build blocks of quotes to say siding, and you can save that as a template and add mini templates into your pricing. So you've got block here, block there, and pull those things in. We see that really, really commonly when companies are, say, like a general contractor, and they're being like, here's my electrical stuff, here's my plumbing stuff, here's my painting work, drywall work. They'll have a template with all of the different ways of describing and communicating that. My favorite for painting is when people use included and excluded sections to be able to say what's included, all the walls and the entire side of the house and the entire inside of the house. Great. Then excluded, but no closets, no doors, no ceilings, so no this. It's so simple.
I did a group coaching call this morning, and one of my clients, I'm going to call you out. Hopefully you're listening to this, Elijah. He was just telling me he just finished up his house from hell, where this customer, just the expectations weren't there. And so she'd be like, oh, I thought you were doing this closet. Oh, I thought you were doing the built-in. I thought you were taking down the built-in. I thought you were doing this. I thought you were doing that. And I think having like an included and excluded, quote clearly printed out and not handwritten would have avoided a lot of those issues.
Yeah. And we template those ways of thinking so that the owner can determine this is the basis of a painting quote, included, excluded, hours, labor,
Yeah.
specific
So
areas.
it's not the customer, the painting contractor that needs to think of like, oh, I should have this in my contract. It's like, no, here's what's recommended, because you've done a lot of coaching painting contractors in your day. So kind of how they think and what type of direction they need. And that's not just like contractor signs up for software and all of a sudden they know how to use it perfectly, right? There's like a huge learning curve, even if it's a fairly simple product.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so we have a bunch of templates and kind of best in class models to say, hey, this is the right way for you to use this. And this is the right way for you to start. Edit it, make it your own, great. But we really leverage a lot of my experience. I've got a few other guys who are kind of in the painting space prior to joining SumoQuote, who helped build some of our painting content. We try to set people on the right path out of the gates with that.
So how about moving down the path of the estimate process, right? We talk about what's included, what's not included, the products you're using. Now we get to the price, right? So it's going to be $12,000, and to get started today, it's only 20% deposit, right? $2,400. How would you like to handle that? So what type of payment integrations do you have, or how can a client make a payment with SumoQuote?
Oh, that's such a good question, because we're launching our payments functionality in the next month or so here. So we didn't have a great payments integration that was directly built right in. And it was a huge feature request. So we have actually built it and we're launching it very shortly, so that with a digital signing tool, as soon as you automatically close, it automatically cycles over to a deposit. And we're accepting ACH payments, credit card payments directly in, and you can set that percentage, fixed dollar amount, whatever it is. Also works for doing like if somebody's doing like emailed quotes or in person, you can do either right away.
And for credit card, do they have to have Stripe set up? Is it through QuickBooks? What is the processor?
So ours is a full white labeled payments tool built right in. So ours is going to be, I mean, if the technical company is called Payrix, which is our solution. Our customers would never run into that, but it's directly built in. It's called SumoQuote Payments.
Yes, but so they don't need that. They don't need to have a payment processor. They don't also need to have Stripe, which some other systems make you have Stripe as well.
No, they need to apply and provide their business information, and then put in any sort of banking information and things like that, so that they can be approved. So they do have to be a legitimate business. It's not a great way to launder money, because they still do have to go through the process of it. But it's an incredibly lightweight, quick application process, and then directly integrated in, and right within their SumoQuote, they can get the payments directly submitted right to their own bank account and stuff.
Yeah,
we've got some like industry leading lower rates as low as 2.99% on credit card payments coming out. And I think it's really going to take the industry by storm.
Well, there's been some consumer law changes recently as well, where businesses can now charge the credit card fee on top. Are you planning on any sort of like thing where you can, pick who pays for the credit card fee?
Yeah, we're gonna start enabling some of those payments fees to be transferred to the homeowner in time. Out of the gates, we're going to keep it just based on fixed percentages and things. We've got some amazing pricing adjustment pieces where people can just add a 3% markup and kind of like hide that and bury it into the quote to just say credit cards included. Great. So there's ways that we currently allow people to very delicately adjust their pricing to compensate for it.
Cool.
But yeah, we're looking at that. So we primarily service the American market. We have got a pile of Canadians using it, some Australians. We're a little bit globally dispersed. And the regulations actually change per country, but also per state to an extent. So there's a degree of complexity that we're trying to make sure that we're in compliance for.
Yeah.
It's complicated. But,
well, I mean, totally. When you're a Canadian company now dealing with American money, complication ensues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and no Canadians ever heard of an ACH payment. You know, they all
No.
want e-transfer. That's great. Yeah.
But also no Americans heard of an e-transfer and how wonderful that is.
It's glorious. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
glorious.
Yeah.
It's
E-transfers are great.
yeah.
So if you could distill down, this is a big question. I'm putting you on the spot here. If you could distill down like the number one best thing about SumoQuote for a painting contractor, what would that be?
What would be the number one best thing for a painting contractor? It
Not
depends on the
necessarily,
size.
not necessarily
Yeah.
feature, but like just the best benefit or whatever. Like just open-ended question, full open-ended. Use your creative liberties to answer.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a two-sided question, because it depends on the size of the painting company. If a painting company is $500,000, $750,000 a year or less, the best feature for them is that they're going to be more competitive. Their quotes are going to look way better. They're going to close more deals. Like we see people's close rates on retail go up by as much as like 60, 64% by using SumoQuote versus handwritten. So for those smaller businesses, they're just going to close more. They're going to make more money. They're going to love it. But if I were to say for painting companies, the biggest benefit by using a tool like SumoQuote is you actually create a standard for how you sell, which allows you to say, hey, I'm not going to do 500K a year or 750 grand a year. I can now add a salesperson. So when you create that process, it allows you to go over that hurdle of, salesperson 1, salesperson 2, so that, the painting companies that are using SumoQuote are doing like 10 million a year. Like they're big, they're serious, they're making a lot of money, but it's because they need a standard for how to sell. And we just like knock that out of the park. Mm-hmm. So as soon as people are wanting to say, hey, I'm actually, I'm not just wanting to look pretty and stand out and run my lifestyle business, but I want to actually build a machine that can run sales teams. That's when people are like, oof, like SumoQuote really knocks that out of the park. Yeah. And it forces you to grow. You have to create a sales system. You have to create a sales process. And like what you're saying this is the way to go through an in-home pitch with a homeowner. SumoQuote forces you to do that. So it takes a lot of the expertise that you're pushing on people, Mike, and saying, this is the way you have to do things to close better. And we just make it the way. So they just click +1, they've added another salesperson, let's go. That's how you double your sales, not how you increase your close rate.
Yeah, definitely. That's huge, actually. So number one is like the obvious one, especially for the smaller contractor. They're going to be like, I'm going to be able to close more jobs, which is, being more efficient with your time, making more money per hour, everything like that. But
heck yeah.
But a lot of contractors that I talk to really struggle with that process of adding a salesperson, right? It's like, maybe I don't have enough quotes for a salesperson, or I just don't have enough time to do the work to put the processes in place. But it sounds like SumoQuote kind of makes that pretty easy.
We make it easy. We also just make it happen. Sometimes as with the guys that you're coaching, it's less about, do you have time for this? Or is this going to be easy? It's much more about, how is this going to impact my business if I change the way that I run things? It's just growing up. Part of it is just growing up as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. And that's, we force people to do that. Yes, it's easier. Yes, we've got systems. Yes, we've got a setup team that helps people set up their sales processes for free. But you'd be shocked at how many people don't even take advantage of that. Even though we've got everything put together, it's like, no, it's still hard work to grow up. And that's what we try to challenge people to do, is say, we want to challenge you to level up your sales process. We want to challenge you to become better as a business owner. That's intimidating, but we've got a pile of business owners that have got a lot of guts. They've got a lot of commitment to growth. And so as a result, they love what we do. Yeah. Love what we do.
That's very cool. So so the two things are basically the two best parts for a painting contractor specifically is that sales rate, that close rate,
Yeah.
And then the ability to more simply or more easily add a salesperson, which, you know, it's not an easy thing to do. Anyone struggling with that right now, like, it's not going to be a magic pill. It's still going to be challenging.
Oh, it's brutal. Like, and I mean, I never learned that when I was doing a painting business. That was hard. And I didn't know how to replicate myself because I was good at what I did. You know, getting into the tech space, I mean, now I've got a sales team of, 6 guys, and, being able to replicate myself has been, the secret to SumoQuote scalability.
Yeah.
So that's hard.
It is hard. I've definitely had to level that up of myself growing this business. You know, you become too busy and you're like, oh, what am I doing that doesn't need to be done by me? And how can I create a system and a process and a role around it? And the same thing is done within a painting company. It's just, it's just a little bit harder to see because you're running around all day doing a million things. But, time management ultimately becomes, what are you doing all day? How do you get rid of write down all the things that you don't want to be doing and then create a job description around that.
Totally. Well, and one thing that you've done really well is if you're getting guys like Zach and Pratik, coaches like that on your team, those guys are top tier. So you hire the right people, you give them a good process and a good level of clarity. Whew, that's dangerous, like that's the way. So, and there's talent out there, like even for these painting companies that are building their businesses, it's shocking the talent that's out there, that if you can lead them and create the structure for them, they will do better than you, and I mean, trust me on that. Like I've got guys here that they close way better than me.
Well, that's the way that I think about it is like, okay, one of, when you were doing sales, one of your jobs was sales, or as a painting contractor, one of your jobs is sales. Another one of your jobs is production. Another one of your jobs is recruiting. Another one of your jobs is, HR. Another one of your jobs is financials. But now you just hire someone who only does sales, right? And that's all they get to focus on, or all they have to focus on. Hopefully they do better than you.
Yeah. Well, you sure hope so. But
yeah.
And you know what? I mean, we really get excited about how do we help contractors become revenue-driven organizations where the bottleneck is not jobs. The bottleneck is not money coming in. The bottleneck is production. Because most companies, they never experience that. And if you can become a revenue-led or a revenue-driven organization, it's wild. It's wild. You can do anything that you want, Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before on this podcast, but a painting company really should be looked at as a sales and marketing organization that also paints. Right?
Yeah.
Some people say it should be a customer service organization that also paints, but I always push back on that. And I think it should be a sales and marketing, because if you don't have sales and marketing engine, you don't have customers to serve. So that has to become.
Yeah. First. And I think that the contracting businesses that I know that are like, you have to be a customer service first organization, they rely so heavily on referrals that as soon as the market throws them for a loop, you see COVID hit you, you see a recession hit you, the referrals stop and they have no control over that situation. So typically, if they're saying you have to be a customer service organization, I agree, but it means you don't have any control over your fate. You have no control over your growth. So sales, marketing first, if you can crack that nut, absolutely serve your customers as best you can, but why don't you serve 10 times as many?
Well, even the guys that say that, from in my experience, are the ones who, are the owner operator plus maybe a helper or two. So yeah, you can stay busy with referrals all day, when you're doing 15,000 a month. But if you want to get to 100,000 a month or 500,000 a month, which, I know many who are there, you cannot do that without, significant marketing and sales systems.
Yeah. Or you can only do it seasonally. Yeah. You can only burn that hot, seasonally, where people are maybe doing 100,000 a month, but they're like, I only work 5-6 months of the year. It's like, like that is not sustainable if you want to run it year round and develop an in-house team that's solid and can grow. So
But, you know,
totally
there's nothing
agree.
wrong with that if that's someone's goal and that's what they want to do, and they take 6 months a year off and go, you know, travel to, you know, wherever, Nicaragua for 6 months. Great, you know, live your life.
I
But
did it. I did
yeah,
it. Yeah, it was great. It was great, but I mean, you know, as soon as people start having kids and stuff like that, it's like, you might that model might not work for you. But
exactly. You now need a little
for a
bit more
time,
stability, and sales and marketing, you know, can solve most business problems, right? You add another 100K work in your pipeline, and all of a sudden you have the resources to solve problems with money.
totally. Mike, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Is how do you see the painting industry beginning to become tech enabled? And how do you see these owner operators starting to learn about integrations, to learn about automations and ways to streamline and start letting tech do the work? How do you see
Mhm.
the market adopting that level of thinking?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's actually cool timing for you to ask that question because
Mm.
just on the last episode, I had Nick Slavik, who's the chairman of the PCA on, and we talked a lot about, you know, the rate of development of the painting contracting industry, whereas like roofing and solar and all that are very refined already. Painting just isn't there. So what we're really seeing is a dichotomy of two types of painting contractors. We got the old guards, right? We got the old guys, the old boys club, who are still doing things the way they did it 30 years ago, pencil to paper, you know, just basically running their business off a pager. And then we have this new age of painting contractors, which are primarily the ones who end up finding me, or it's like, how can I do this quicker? You know, the new age is now we don't need 10 years experience in order to build a successful painting company. We can do it with just, you know, with really no experience. I mean, we've had guys come in, seeing our ads and building successful painting businesses, not even know which side of the brush to hold. Right? I mean, that's how we were when we started. So,
Yeah.
so it's happening pretty fast, and it's really cool to see how open-minded painting contractors are now to technology. I mean, I'm helping painters get set up on Zapier every single day, right? And
Ooh,
so their ability,
that's my love language right there, Mike.
yeah. I see the word Zaps on your board.
Oh,
So
is that actually behind me? Yeah, it totally is.
yeah, I deciphered it. But I see what you mean with your chicken scratch, right?
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
problem.
So, you know, I think we run about 50,000 zaps a month or something like that. So we're big into it, but the way the painting contractors are not just like farming out their tech now, but willing to learn, willing to work from their computers, go on Zapier, go into the back end of Facebook, learn how all of these things work together and how they can, you know, automate their businesses. It's happening really quickly, and people are very open to it, which is
Awesome.
so amazing to see.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually just we ran our SumoQuote user summit on Wednesday, so just 2 days ago, and we did a session on automating your workflow, and so I led the automating your workflow, and what I started having the conversation around is how do you actually think about what do you automate and leveraging tools like Zapier, and then how does AI fit into that? And so some of what I was walking through, and I'd be happy to share you a link to the webinar. I guess it'd be the conference recording from Wednesday. But if you've got a bunch of people who are starting to say, "Hey, I'm thinking about automating things, and how do I actually start leveraging and removing, you know, people from those tasks and handoffs?" You know, that's the world that I eat, sleep, and breathe. But that's also something that, you know, at SumoQuote, we're really trying to level up contractors in that way as well. So, I mean, pretty fresh off the press. It's, you know, I think that we'll have the recording ready to go in the next like hour or two. It's
Yeah,
very
would
fresh.
love to, if you could share that. I'll put it in the description here of the
Oh,
podcast,
man.
and people can check that out.
Sounds
Um,
great.
so let's make that pivot. We haven't talked a lot about AI on this podcast before, but I would love to hear your insight on that. How do you see AI? You know, that's such a broad word, but like the specific, you know, implementations that a contractor can use AI in their business.
Hmm. Yeah, so it is a really good question, and I would say overall, what I notice is that the majority of people, when it comes to AI, especially in the contractor space, um, they they try to use it as a silver bullet to cover over, you know, a multitude of problems. So, you know, say for instance, we hear it in sales pitches where we're pitching SumoQuote to a contractor, and we're like, you know, we're a great quoting tool. We build beautiful proposals, yada, yada. And they're like, well, you know what? I'm just going to use AI to build my quotes. So F you. And then they like hang up. And we're just like, are you serious? Like, so you get this like weird blanket, AI is going to solve everything for me. And that's just not reality. And so the way that I think about AI and how it fits is there's kind of two sides of the of the tech enabled world. There's things that you can automate, repetitive tasks, CRM entry, tracking, you know, sending scheduled emails and stuff like that. There's things that you can automate very, very easily, and there's things that you can't. So people, you know, and when we say what can't you automate, that's where you hear people say customer experience. You can't automate the kitchen table. You know, you can't automate things like, you know, the installation of a roof or the painting of a house. I mean, we're not worried about those robots just yet. But there's a lot of things that you can't automate. However, what AI is doing is it's beginning to blur the lines again. You know, nobody would have believed that you could automate measuring a house, and tools like Eagle View and Hover, and you know, they're beginning to do aerial imagery to measure houses. So people would say, oof, you can't automate that. You can't automate measuring the siding on the exterior of a house. Well, Hover exists, and yes, you can. So it's pretty cool. Now, when we say, how is it that AI is starting to blur those lines of possible and impossible? One of the things that I did in my talk is I showed how you can ingest sold data from SumoQuote to say, it's a painting project for $12,000. They're based in Orlando. This is their address, and we're going to call them 2 weeks before. Hey, ChatGPT, with all these pieces of data, please write a custom email from my salesperson so that it feels personalized and casual, and send that to them through Zapier. So starting to actually take some of that human experience that typically the salesperson or the business owner, you know, that customer experience that can't be automated, and saying, you know what, using AI, we can actually start blurring the edges of what's possible and start passing those things through. And so one of the things in my talk, I actually share templates to those zaps so that if people want to start leveraging AI to remove some things that they thought, oof, you can't really do this. Well, you can. And here's a free template in Zapier to just try it.
So cool. So to be clear, just so I understand what you just said, is you can have an input where a salesperson would put in a few considerations, like time of the estimate, or say time of the job, and, you know, detail 1, detail 2, detail 3. And then it would go through Zapier, which would connect to ChatGPT. You would put in a prompt, which would pump out an email, and it would send that email.
Sure. I mean, I could show you if you want. I mean,
this is mostly an audio podcast, so we'll keep it verbal for right now. But sure. That is so cool. I mean, we use ChatGPT. We recommend ChatGPT, but more specifically for like marketing chat. I've used it to write emails, but I always go in the app or on the website, you know, write me an email like this. These are my details, and it'll kind of just write me an email, and then I'll edit it from there. Good place to get started. I also use it for like brainstorming various things. I have never thought about using it within a Zap before. I didn't even know that was possible.
It is possible.
That is so cool.
It is possible. And that's where what I try to be able to challenge people to think about is, what are the things that you actually are doing step by step, handing it off when you get a lead, you know, when you're getting this, and recognize that AI's place is starting to blur the lines of what your assumptions are of what is not automatable. But the reality is that some of it is. And that is powerful. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, that's kind of my thesis of AI. AI is wonderful because it can start removing tasks that otherwise couldn't be. Um, However, I mean, of course, the natural risk of it is that AI also creates things. So it creates net new, which is the first time in Earth's existence that anything aside from us truly creates net new, creates something brand new. We are the call it the original creators, or if you believe in a high power, we are the second creators. However, AI is the third creator that can take prompts, take information, and create something totally new. And so, there's some nervousness to that, and there's some anxiety to that. James Barrett, an author who wrote on artificial intelligence, um, there's a book that he wrote called Our Final Invention in 2013. He has a great quote, which is, "Artificial intelligence will be the last invention of man." Because after that, all of our inventions will be augmented by AI, or it will be supported by AI. And that can be concerning for some. However, you know what? The genie's out of the bottle. There's no putting it back in. That's not the way that technology goes. So being able to leverage it to your advantage, I think, is very powerful. But recognizing the constraints of it is powerful as well.
I feel like we're moving to Lex Friedman territory here. I 100% agree with you. And the scary thing that I always like to think about is AI will never be worse than it is today. It's absolutely at its lowest point that it ever will be for the rest of our lives, and it's going to keep getting exponentially better until forever. And so at one point, it's going to surpass human intellectual ability, and then it's going to keep on going from there. And that's when the real genie comes out of the bottle.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I think that people are smart, and people understand things that don't have heart to them. So AI is always going to have a lack of empathy and a lack of human connection that, this isn't going to be able to be replaced. And in addition, I mean, if you look at Gen Zs, the youngest generation now that's kind of coming up, they, yes, they're consumed by their phones. Yes, like the rest of us, they are. But Gen Zs also have a desire for anonymity and for, impermanence, like things not being saved forever, ways that millennials and Gen X and boomers don't, they don't think that way.
They grew up with their parents posting their entire childhoods on Facebook. So they're like, enough is enough.
So exactly. So then they're like, Snapchat. Yes, we have to use something that it's just something dumb. It's something fun, and then it's gone forever.
Yeah.
So what you see is that there's actually a generational mistrust of technology, that when people start stepping into it deeper, they actually mistrust what that data will be used for. They don't trust the way that will control their lives, where I think millennials and Gen X and boomers are a little bit naive. So
I would push back a little bit. I don't think we're naive, but I think we're at the I don't care stage. Right? You get that terms and conditions. Oh, I accept before. Yeah, sure. I try. Facebook will use my information, whatever. But I'll still use it. Right?
Yeah,
still
totally.
Post pictures of my kids, but like I know I shouldn't, but it's so convenient and embedded in our lives that we do anyway.
Totally. Well, and the gap between being naive and apathetic is probably just being overinformed. So I think that you're right, and right on the money. But I would say that what AI is going to, do is going to be, it's going to start increasing some of people's abilities to step away from things that were not able to be delegated, which is going to be really powerful for families, for business owners, for for talented people. But I think on the other side, I have quite a bit of hope for the new generation's tendency to be cautious, and their tendency to mistrust, even when they were born with it in their hands, which is so strange. Like, why wouldn't they trust it more? They have every reason to trust it more.
Counterintuitive.
Yeah, and it's because people are smart, and they will not be fooled by some machine. You know, that's why it's the elderly that get screwed by internet scams and not the young.
Hmm.
So people are becoming smarter, and that yeah, it's interesting. So
The way you
so
just,
I'm very hopeful.
do you have a couple more minutes here?
Yeah,
Can you go
man,
5 minutes?
absolutely.
Okay. So one thing as you were just talking there, I was thinking of one potential AI opportunity that I don't think is here quite yet, but would be really valuable for painting contractors specifically would be, and maybe this is something that SumoQuote could do down the line, is you put in the job specifications and then SumoQuote or whatever could pump out a job plan for your painters. On day
Cool.
one, painter one should be do this, this, and this. On day one, painter two should do this, this, and this. You should
Cool.
be done this by noon. And then on day two, here's and it could take into consideration order of operations, layout of the house, potentially skill of each painter, and just put together a job plan that would increase productivity.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting, and I think one of the things that that you start looking at is you start looking at AR and the way that augmented reality could also do analysis of work and recognize ways to do skill enhancement
Hmm.
alongside a plan,
Yeah.
So you could actually start seeing the way that it's like, this painter sucks at brushwork. So you know what? Put him on the roller and swap them out. This is the efficiency gain you can expect. So there's, and I think, are you familiar with the tool Magic Plan? It's a fairly painter specific tool, Magic
I haven't
Plan.
heard
It's
of
like,
that one. No.
so it's cool. You kind of take photos, scan a house, and it can create measurements and things like that from a house. I've only seen kind of a couple beta videos of it. It's pretty powerful, but a tool like that, I could totally see creating more efficiency based plans, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think nowadays just the computing power to be able to analyze and create efficiency. I mean, now people's phones are so insanely powerful, and AI allows an offloading there to be able to map, create intelligent analysis, and boom, off we go. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that that's interesting, but I am not freaking out about AI, but I am kind of freaking out about AI. Like I
Mhm.
watched Terminator, like I know what's coming, like.
Yeah. That was actually that was a time traveling documentary.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
why Arnold is the king. The guy's such a machine. He
Yeah.
saw the future. He even though he only had a few dollars in his pocket, he still made success
Wasn't it James
happen.
Cameron? Wasn't James Cameron the director?
He
I can't.
was. I was just thinking. I'm like, I don't know. I just think
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger has had
Yeah.
a horseshoe up his butt, and so he had to be involved.
So I guess just to recap back to like the
Yeah.
executable things, the implementation that painters can use as a result of this. Specifically, we'll start with AI just to kind of recap the things. So, so number one, like looking into that video that you posted below, you kind of walk through the different Zap templates on how to make some of these emails and utilize
Yep.
AI and ChatGPT a bit better. Um, any other areas in contractors' businesses that you're seeing AI being used?
Not yet. Contractors are still needing to digitize before they can leverage digital enhancement.
Hmm.
So, I mean, if people were to say, "Hey, what's another thing that handwritten quotes don't give you?" Well, it sure doesn't give you AI. Like it's sure not going to give you any cool, fancy stuff
Yeah.
that people are getting obsessed with. So you know, one of the things that we pride ourselves in with SumoQuote is we have a very robust API. So we have a very robust connection with Zapier and other data sources so that people can get their data from their quotes, from what was signed, from customers, so that then they can do something with that. So if you're to say, what else am I seeing? I'm like, man, everything is possible if it's the case that you actually have access to your data. One of the big issues with a bunch of these contractor CRMs and other tools is sometimes their APIs suck and their Zapier integrations suck. And you just can't do anything. You're
Yeah.
stuck in this all in one solution that sucks at 15 different things. So then you can't even connect to other tools to take it over. So, there's a bit of there's a bit of an angsty, tone to that because, of course, like we are a very open, integratable tool. But when people have that, the ability to interact with digital data and interact with digital information, and then create analysis, be able to create, different machine learning changes to that data becomes possible.
Hmm.
So I always say, I'm like, man, step one, if it's a case that you want to work less and accomplish more, well, apply technology to your business.
Yeah.
Like that's not a big stretch to say, hey, like, Apple's worth $2 trillion. Do you think that they did that with pen and paper? Like, come on, guys. Like,
Yeah.
if you're trying to level up your business, take a lesson from somebody who's made, you know, a billion or $1 trillion worth of value.
It's easy to say add technology to your business, but contractors often get stuck with like, what's the first step that I should take, right? And I guess
Oh,
in this case, it should be just check out the link below and see if SumoQuote would could help you in your business.
yeah. You know what? And that'd be great. I'll actually plug another talk that I did on how to select your tech stack. And the way that I break it down in this one talk is based on stage of business. It's a little bit more specific for roofing companies, admittedly, but there's some really good lessons in there to be able to say, hey, if you're a small business and you don't want to grow further, here are the pieces of technology you need, and here's the pieces you don't need.
Yeah.
And then if you're trying to get to this stage, here's the next layer of tech to consider.
Very
Then
cool.
here's the next. If you're thinking about
Yeah.
more
Send
of
that
an
over and
enterprise level.
I'll include that as well.
Sure, man. Yeah, I got a brick of different talks I've done on exactly this because it's we eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff, man.
Amazing. So I'm gonna put you on the spot one more time.
Sure.
I like to take care of my listeners, and especially
Yeah.
anyone who makes it all the way to the bitter end. What's a special offer that you can get offer people just to get people to get a taste of SumoQuote?
Oh man. Well, what I will give you is I will give you access to our Black Friday early. So we are going to be doing our Black Friday deal towards the end of November. So we're going to be offering half off any subscription for your first 3 months, or if you sign up annually, we'll give you a $200 off of any subscription you choose. So
Awesome.
happy to
Love it.
happy to send that your way. Get it to you guys a little bit early. It's going to be valid through Cyber Monday week. So what I would really recommend, head to sumoquote.com, start a free trial. You can also just book a demo directly with the team. And if it's the case that you mention the coupon code that I will give to Mike and that we'll attach in these notes, it's going to be valid for it'll be about 4 weeks. So
Perfect.
between now and kind of just before Christmas time, so you'll be able to take advantage of it.
So
But,
we'll put that coupon code in the description as soon as you get it to us. And
yeah.
this one's going live on Monday, so quick turnaround.
Hey, that's no big deal. We're more than happy to see if we can support you guys that way. So
Awesome.
it's going to be a sweet deal. We'll call it the Mike Gore Hickman special. Nobody else has got this promo until Black Friday, but if you put me on the spot, I mean, you're always going to be getting the things that I'm working on a few weeks ahead of it actually being launched. That's the perk of meeting with me.
Yeah. Well, hey, Brandon, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for spending time with us. And it was great reconnecting with you. This was a lot of fun.
Oh man, this is great. Thanks for having me, and hopefully we can be a little bit encouraging and supportive to some of the businesses that you guys are trying to grow. You guys are doing an awesome job of just trying to level up businesses. I mean, this is the good stuff.
Likewise, man. I love the tech side of things you're bringing to the contracting space. It's much needed.
Cool. Well, I'll share a few links, and then hopefully you guys can just leverage a bunch of it for free. And if it serves you guys, great. That's the goal. Is we just want to make it more accessible for people to grow their revenue.
Awesome. Thanks again, Brandon.
Yeah. Thanks for your time, man.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.